We just wrapped up our 2024 market expansion project, and the result is more cities, more rentals, and more cash flow. So I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes giving you the entire list of our favorite markets to invest in for this upcoming year. Buckle up. We're going to start with the giveaway. The coupon code for 25 free copies of the legendary rental property calculator or anything else from the Ace Toolkit store in our link in bio is going to be top cities, all lowercase, one word, TOPCITIES. It's going to go fast. It's 25 first come, first serve. This video is posted on a lot of different platforms. If you don't get there fast enough, that coupon code is going to say expired when you type it in, and you could just choose to pay $45 for a really useful tool to purchase that you could buy rental properties with maybe a little bit more accurately, right? Or you can make better decisions on your next rental property purchase. The coupon code's not good for the course. It never has been. If you want to understand the methods we use to be able to farm in these cities, then take deals all the way from lead generation to closing 100% remotely, then we got that virtual investor's guide on our website as well. Check it out. I'm done plugging. Let's get right into it. So the format of today's session, I'm going to talk fast because there's a lot to talk about. You might have to pause, pen and pad this, watch it twice, whatever. It's going to be worth it because I'm really popping the hood and showing you what's underneath here. The format for today's session is going to be states, cities, and even areas within these cities that we're really liking the most. And I'm going to give you them in, I don't know, some order of the level of activity that we're engaged in these states in, right? I'll give you the whole, actually, I won't give you the whole list of states. I'm gonna go one at a time. I got 10 states, and the earlier ones have a lot more meat on the bone. And the later ones just have a couple different markets that we're in, or maybe we're just starting to experiment in a little bit more. The first is going to be Indiana. Now, this is our GOAT, and it's not because it's the greatest state to invest in out of all of these. And none of these are better than the other, really. It's all about deal by deal in real estate, right? And how successful you are as an operator, how well you execute. But Indiana is our personal favorite because we've been in it for so long. So we have really good infrastructure. We've got good relationships with management. We own a lot of properties. We could take on scary projects ourselves. And we've done a lot of deals with our investors in these cities too. So we're really, really confident in the state of Indiana. The markets we like are all along the northern portion of it, right? The Lake Michigan coast. All the way from Hammond, Indiana. If you draw a line from Hammond, Indiana, all the way out to Elkhart, and then even a little further out to Fort Wayne that we're starting to experiment in, these are the cities that we're active in. And there really is no-go zone for us and our managers and our visualized success with clients in our own rentals anywhere between Hammond and Elkhart. Fort Wayne, we're getting to know it a little bit. There's obviously a cheap part of town. You don't want to get into the part of town where duplexes are only worth $90K when they're all cleaned up. But there aren't really parts of town like that in Fort Wayne either, right? So basically, I'm going to keep this short by saying draw the line from Hammond to Fort Wayne and everything in between on that northern side, it's a go. We like Muncie, Indiana too, but we're more careful. There's more regions in that southeastern part of Muncie, Indiana that don't meet that cleaned up 3-bedroom house is worth $90K rule. There's a lot of really cheap stuff in some of these parts that you got to watch out for. But the whole northern portion of Muncie and some of the southern portion of Muncie works out for us as well. We haven't had a lot of success in Anderson or Kokomo. We've tried a little bit of each. There's been select deals that have worked in each, but it's not really highly prevalent. I don't really love Indianapolis. And it's not that there's something about Indianapolis that doesn't work. It's that the rents are a little bit lower out there for the price of the same product. And I don't understand why. You think there's a strong job market there that keeps the rents pretty strong, but you have a hard time finding good cap rates in apples to apples product. You can go to a C-class neighborhood up in Northwest Indiana, C+, B-, whatever it might be, and it's probably gonna have a significantly higher cap rate for a product that's like even a little bit nicer looking many times than it is in Indianapolis. So I do a deal in Indianapolis. If it came across my desk, they're just not really coming across my desk that much. If it hits the investor list, it's met all of our checks, right? So I wouldn't worry about that if you're seeing properties from us. But how often are they hitting our investor list? Like almost never, and that's kind of for a reason, and that makes us go, we shouldn't really double down on this market. It's an uphill climb for us. But that's the state of Indiana for us. Then we're gonna go into Wisconsin. This is our second most active state because of the amount of time we spent there. We went to one side of Chicago and said, hey, we're capitalizing on this Chicago exodus trend. Then the next thing we did was go to the other side of Chicago, right? And I want you to draw a line starting at Kenosha, Wisconsin, all the way at the southeast corner, all the way along that eastern coast of Wisconsin up to Sheboygan and even Two Rivers or even Manitowoc if you're daring to get to a small town. But I think Two Rivers is safe enough. all on that east side. All those cities work. And then I want you to go into Green Bay and everything around Green Bay, Appleton, and then back down to the left side of Lake Winnebago, all the way down to the bottom of Lake Winnebago, down to Fond du Lac, right? So the cities that work are basically Kenosha, Racine on the southeast corner, Milwaukee, and we have actually gotten confident enough in Milwaukee. We spent enough time there. We could do any part of Milwaukee, just as the neighborhoods get particularly cheap, like in the center portion of the north side of town, 53206 zip code. We're just really cautious about property quality in that zip code because we just don't want to deal with like rehabs in the cheaper parts of town. But we kind of do all of Milwaukee because the level of confidence we've developed and the resources and all that. But Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee, and then up to Sheboygan, and then Two Rivers, and you go into Green Bay, or not inland per se, but you go west to Green Bay, and then south from Green Bay, you're gonna see Appleton, Neenah, Menasha, Oshkosh, and then you go a little further south, all the way to the bottom of Lake Winnebago, and you'll see Fond du Lac. So those are all the cities that we do in Wisconsin. Janesville and Beloit are cool, but the data really sucks out there for marketing, so we haven't really generated a lot of deals there. And I think the ship's slightly sailed in Janesville, but I think there's opportunity in those two cities as well. So those are the markets we operate in Wisconsin. Now there's two newcomers, Ohio and Pennsylvania, on our list that we started marketing to 6 months ago. We're starting to see deals come through. We really like parts of Cleveland and parts of Pittsburgh. And when the properties are clean and the rents are pretty good, we see some good cash flow with some predictable product and an abundance of it that gives you a lot of options to get in and invest. And there's small multi also in both of these. The key to high cap rates we've found in property that's relatively stable is the smaller multifamily in the neighborhood that's what we like to call C plus, right? So and C plus in Cleveland is very different than like C plus in like in a really expensive city, a really expensive state, right? It's going to look more affordable housing-y, but the tenant class is pretty strong out there. They're working. We can retain them. It's not just like 1 year and out, right? And there are good affordable housing like HUD programs, Section 8 programs in these states as well, that if your management company is pretty savvy, they'll be able to work with them. But Ohio is the next state, and here's all the cities we like in Ohio. So we like Cleveland, and anything on the west side of Cleveland is automatic green light with almost every property manager we talk to. I think every property manager we talk to, we just haven't talked to all of them, so I can't guarantee that. So I gave you kind of a tentative almost, right? But the whole west side works. The whole west side works. And if you go further west, there's some secondary markets like Lorain and Elyria that also actually work. There's management companies out there that feel very strongly about most of the product out there too. And then on the east side of Cleveland, you just got to be selective. East Cleveland proper is a difficult neighborhood for investors to retain tenants in, and the values are lower. So you put a roof on, you paint floor, and then you spend as much money on the property as you bought it for, right? And you don't want to do that. So we stay out of areas where a duplex can't be worth like $140 all cleaned up and nice and rented for market rents, right? We like to see a minimum value, but that east side, we're selective. You want to look by region, and you want to look for those values. The 3-bedroom home that when it's cleaned up is worth about, the small 3-bedroom home, 90, 100, 110, something like that, right? Are you seeing those in those rental grade neighborhoods? And not just that one cherry pick comp, but like, are you seeing more of those than you are the ultra cheap ones that are in bad condition, right? So the east side, you just have to play in patches, and you're starting to actually see upwards trends in some of like the edge lines of patches that were cheaper, close to neighborhoods that are better, which is a good sign. And we've seen those trends like over the past 7-8 months, not over years. So it seems like it's happening kind of quickly. We like Cleveland. I wish I liked Columbus. I can't make deals happen in Columbus. It's a little saturated and too trendy. It's on too many growth lists, right? So once you get on a growth list, then the growth gets a lot harder to get. That's kind of the nature of growth lists, right? Top growing cities in blank. So we can't make Columbus work. Cincy's been a little bit more of a figuring out game for us because the lines aren't as clear and the product is, it's kind of like peppered in. There's like high value and low value mixed in with each other. But we like some secondary markets, like Springfield, Ohio is actually pretty interesting. We like Dayton. I think it's a little tougher to make work from a cash flow standpoint than some of the other markets that I mentioned, but it's definitely one on our marketing list. So I think the clear winner in Ohio is the west side of Cleveland and select patches on the east that we didn't like before, but the values have really come up, the rents have really come up, and the predictability of the asset class, according to property managers, has improved quite a bit. In Pennsylvania, we're only in Pittsburgh and surrounding markets. And Pittsburgh is one where you just have to follow our value rules, right? You just have to go out there and say, hey, are we out of the ultra low value patches where you're seeing enough good comps to make it work? And what are the property managers saying? Because Pittsburgh is kind of like what I said about Cincinnati. We've just invested more time in figuring it out because it seems to fit more often, or the product cash flows more often than the same one does in Cincinnati. It's peppered in. There's high and low right next to each other a lot. So it takes a bit of time to figure this market out, and it's property by property, product by product. It's a market worth figuring out. And if you're seeing deals come across our desk and landing on yours in Pittsburgh, we've comped them out. We've gotten manager approval on them, right? They're pretty clean. We like that city. You just got to inspect because there's a lot of hills. In cheaper properties in cheaper areas, when the market crashed, these things were worth nothing back in like 08, 2010, 2011, 2012. And you get these older brick buildings on hills that aren't worth a lot. People don't spend money fixing the masonry, the foundations. They don't even bother putting gutters on, right? So you just got to inspect them. We inspect every single one before we send them out. But that's a market that at first I didn't like because all the shitty sellers call you first when you start marketing. And then once you get past that batch of like the low-hanging fruit who are just desperate to sell, we've gotten some really good properties there. So I'm starting to really enjoy Pittsburgh. We have a really awesome 12 unit coming up in Pittsburgh where I talked to the seller myself and she was just a gem. She was so on top of things. And it really gave me more confidence in the more affordable neighborhoods here because you see high quality landlords in this market as well. And then the rest of the list. So these are the areas that we're a little less active in because you got to get a little more lucky to make deals work in them. But as they come through, we like them. They just don't come through as often, which makes them tougher markets. We got to focus on narrower criteria, really lucky deal criteria, and then just live with the fact that we're only going to get deals every so often there. So in Kentucky, Louisville's solid. I'm not going to call it Louisville. I don't go to I'm not going to say what I'm going to say. Never mind. I'm not going to use their accent to pronounce it, right? I'm going to call it Louisville. I like Louisville, but the 4s and the 6s, they just don't trade hands that often out there because people really hold on to these properties, long-term owner type thing. That's a good sign, but it's tough to get a discount. They're often under-rented. When we do find one with good rents and an attractive price, we do jump on it. Our investors always love them. We love keeping them if they're lucky enough. Louisville's a good market. The other cities in Kentucky are tough. We could try to find deals in Frankfort or Lexington or Richmond. And as they come, we take them on, but we've only done a handful in each of these cities ever, and kind of for a reason. You gotta get a little luckier. Tennessee, same story. It takes some luck, but Jackson sure as hell works for us. Jackson's on the up and up, and we like it because it's actually got better rents per unit value than Memphis. So it actually works out. And the neighborhoods seem a little more predictable out there too. And that's kind of how secondary markets have always worked, right? So Jackson, Tennessee, solid, smaller deals there, not a lot of bigger buildings, some fourplexes, but we really do a lot of houses and doubles in Jackson, Tennessee. Bristol, Kingsport, Johnson City on the east side of Tennessee used to work better for us, and we'd love to take deals down in them as they come along, but kind of like the Kentucky product, right? It takes a little bit of luck to see them, and we're not seeing them as often as we used to. And then we've got some markets where we're playing in smaller cities. So Michigan, Illinois are interesting because you have smaller cities that have good landlord-tenant laws, that cash flow well, that actually have pretty solid values. And investors have told us we have really stable management experiences here. Managers are telling us thumbs up, we can take on the 140, 150, 160K duplex out here, right? So in Michigan, we're not in Detroit proper yet. We might get into it patch by patch as we learn to understand it more, but we really only play in the suburbs of Detroit. If the city name's Detroit, we haven't touched it yet. If it comes across our desk, we'll look, but we have to do more research. We're really playing in all the suburbs on the north side of 8 Mile Road, and then on the west side of the inner city, and then on the south side as well, right? Then we also like Lansing, Kalamazoo. Grand Rapids can get a little expensive, so you gotta get a little bit lucky, but those are interesting markets out there as well. Lansing, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Illinois, smaller markets only, no Chicago. Cook County, Illinois has the worst landlord-tenant laws in the country, possibly, up there with New York and California, right, in that particular county. But Peoria, cheap market, stay out of the ultra cheap parts, and then when you get into places that meet our value ceiling, checks out. Bloomington, Rockford, pretty interesting as long as you stay above the value cap. Urbana-Champaign, also pretty interesting. And then states we're trying to break into, St. Louis and Kansas City, Missouri. If it's above the value cap and the managers check it off, we like it out there, but these are mostly single family markets, not as much multifamily markets. And the last one is Arkansas. Got a time cap coming up. Little Rock, low rents. If you can get lucky, it works, but not my top choice. That's it. Rewatch, take notes. Have a good weekend, y'all.